This AI platform called Imagen AI claims it can automate your entire wedding editing workflow, and I'm talking about everything from image culling to cropping, straightening, making localized adjustments, and it can even mimic your own personal style of color grade by analyzing your previously edited images in your Lightroom catalog. How well does it work? Well, I'm going to find out by going head to head with this AI platform. First, I'm going to be editing an entirely fresh set of wedding images the old-fashioned way, and then I'm going to re-edit it a second time from scratch, but this time using Imagen AI to help me. We're then going to compare the results and see just how good it is, and more importantly, how much time it could save you. But before we get started, just for complete transparency, although Imagen AI have been kind enough to sponsor this video, they really haven't told me at any point what I can or can't say about their software. In fact, the only thing they've explicitly told me is that they just want a fair and honest review based on my own personal experience using this software, which of course I'm happy to do. So getting straight into it, I've already gone ahead and created my own personal AI profile by letting Imagen AI analyze a bunch of my images from my Lightroom catalog. The more images you can feed it, the better it'll understand your editing style, but it does require at least 3,000 images to work. Now I should also mention that you can set up multiple profiles for different editing styles. So for example, if you like to make black and white images, you could create a separate profile just for black and white images. Alternatively, if you're looking for something completely new and fresh, then they do have what they call talent AI profiles, which is basically editing profiles that have been created by other professional photographers, which you can use for your own photos. You can either use them just as they come, or you can use the profile adjustments feature to tweak them and make the profile more of your own style. Anyway, before we can get stuck into the AI side of the test, we obviously need a benchmark, which is me. So to really put this thing through its paces, I selected one of the largest weddings that I've shot so far this year. Between myself and a second shooter, we managed to capture around 11,200 photos for this wedding alone, which then needed to be culled down to around 1,000 photos to deliver to the client. So that took a while. All in all, the whole editing process took me around 4 full working days to complete. So let's see how Imagen fares in comparison, starting with the culling process. So the first step was to re-import all of the unedited wedding images into Lightroom and then add them to a new project in the Imagen app. All I had to do then was select the relevant Lightroom catalog from the drop-down menu, select the folder or folders I wanted to start culling, and you can also filter which images within that folder you want to use. On the next page, there are options to select how Imagen goes about culling the images. Personally, I like using the star rating method, but you can also choose color coding if you prefer. After that, Imagen will start culling your images, and obviously with this wedding, there was a fairly large amount of photos to work with, so in total, it took the AI platform around 3 hours to complete. But that is still considerably quicker than what I was able to do it in, because it took me the best part of a full day. Plus, whilst it's doing its thing, it's obviously happy to run in the background, which meant that I could just carry on with more pressing tasks.
Dead. Oh!
Now currently this part of the platform is still in beta, and there are no options to set how many images you want the AI platform to cull this collection down to, so even after this process I was still left with just over 2,000 images. And seeing as I really needed to get this number down somewhere closer to 1,000 images, I then had to dive back into Lightroom to cull them down further, which took me around 2 hours of work to do. Though giving the images a second pass did give me a chance to check the AI's handiwork and whether it had missed any key moments. For the most part, it had done a really good job and selected images that I myself would have selected, albeit for 2 instances where it had missed 2 fairly crucial shots. First was the first kiss, which is pretty important, but it didn't entirely miss the moment, it just chose a shot just before the actual kiss, and I can only assume that it did this because it was prioritizing a shot where it had a clear view of both people's faces, because the other moment it missed was also a kiss as the couple walked back down the aisle. Again, it favored a shot just before the kiss and not the kiss itself. But other than that, it did a pretty damn good job, and all of the other key moments from the wedding were there. The additional images that I had to cull were mainly duplicates or slightly out of focus images or shots where people were just pulling unflattering faces. Overall, I definitely still think it's a great time-saving tool, but it's certainly not at the stage just yet where you could just 100% trust it without checking, but I'm sure this feature will only improve in time. So with the images culled, it was time for editing, and all I needed to do here was hit the send to edit button. I then chose my editing profile and then made sure that it only edited the 5-star images that I had shortlisted. Then it was time for me to crack on with some much more important business whilst Imagen worked its editing magic in the background.
Go on, push him off. Yeah, see ya!
After around 30 minutes, all of the images were done and I was super impressed with the results. Now obviously you can tell that the color grade I've used is not exactly the same as the one the AI has used. And that's because I actually have a few different Lightroom presets, and when I edit I tend to just select one that works the best depending on the tones and colors of that specific wedding. So when Imagen AI analysed my Lightroom catalog, I think what it's done is it's created a totally new color grade based on all of the different presets I've used across the images that were imported. Now in hindsight, what I probably should have have done is created a separate AI profile for each of these Lightroom presets, as that way the AI would have been able to create a like-for-like result. But regardless, at least this was an interesting experiment, and the edit it's given me is certainly one that I'd be more than happy to use, and it really does work with this particular wedding. Aside from that, overall I found the edits were incredibly consistent, and that's mainly because unlike a traditional Lightroom preset, which just adds a blanket set of parameters to every single photo, Imagen AI is able to analyze each of the photos individually and understand exactly what adjustments are needed, and then tweak the parameters accordingly, just like you and I would. I also tried out Imagen's cropping and straightening options. I'm happy to say that both of these features worked as well as I expected, and it certainly helped to save a bit more time in the editing process. Obviously, it isn't 100% foolproof, and there were just a few images that I needed to jump into Lightroom and adjust a little bit further to get to where I would be happy with them, but mainly it was just small tweaks to the exposure slider. But that said, Imagen AI does kind of expect this to be the case, because the final step of this whole process even asks you to re-upload the images a final time so that the AI can have an opportunity to learn from your corrections and apply what it learns to future edits. So essentially, the more you use the platform, the more accurate it should become at editing to your specific style, and hopefully the more time you'll save. Now, speaking of time, how much time did Imagen actually save me compared to my usual editing workflow? By myself, this entire wedding took me around 4 days to complete from start to finish, whereas when I was using the Imagen AI, it reduced this process to just 6 hours, so not even a full day. And you've also got to bear in mind that for around 3.5 hours of that total time, the AI was just doing its thing in the background, which meant that I could get on with playing Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, doing important business stuff. Yes. But what about the cost? Well, Imagen charges 5 cents per photo edit, which includes image culling and just the basic photo editing using your profile. I also then paid for a few additional extras, including 1 cent per photo for cropping and 1 cent per photo for image straightening. So all in all, it worked out at 7 cents per photo edit. So doing the maths very quickly, for 1,039 images, this wedding edit cost me a total of $72.73. When you consider that this wedding package was worth around $3,700, plus it saved me 3 full days of work, personally, I am more than happy to take the $72 on the chin. And if you agree with me and would like to try out Imagen AI for yourself for free, be sure to check out the link in the description below, because you'll get 1,500 free photo edits once you sign up.